I am here. I don't really know what to say, so you're gonna cut that out. Could we maybe get the one and only fantastic Elizabeth on today? I think so. We're gonna skip through the gray box. We're gonna open this up really quick, and then Elizabeth is gonna come on and we're gonna nerd out like we always do in this channel. So I'm super excited. It'll be super fun today, and then I get lunch after this, so life's good. Let's do this. 3, 2, 1. Oh wow, this is gonna be fun today. Crystal systems part 2. So as you know before, Elizabeth and I covered the cubic crystal system, and we had some candy, and we were talking, we were like, all right, that was really fun, we should do that again. And we went and found snacks that match the crystal systems. I suppose if we're talking about crystal systems, there's gonna be something in here that is a great specimen that we can talk about crystal systems. I don't really remember. Well, Elizabeth can tell you what we're talking about today. I just open boxes. Hey, this is a corundum, and I recognize this is basically rough sapphire, guys. This is yellow and blue. As we've talked about before, corundum is like the family name for sapphire and ruby. Pretty cool. I think this is a hexagonal crystal system. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So if you see here, you have 6 sides. That is a hexagonal crystal system. I actually did not realize that sapphire corundum was part of the hexagonal crystal system. So it looks like we're talking about hexagonal crystal system today, and maybe more. Elizabeth is gonna be the one to kind of introduce this episode. I am super excited to have her on. It's always a treat to have a guest, and yeah, let's dive in. Welcome back.
I'm glad to be back.
You're my favorite geologist to have on this channel.
Oh, thank you.
I know, you're great. Okay, so you brought me corundum.
I did.
I brought snacks.
You always have food everywhere.
I always have food. I'm a squirrel. Okay, so we're talking about hexagonal.
For winter.
Saving for winter. I need a snack for winter. Winter is coming, everyone.
Maybe eventually.
You don't watch that TV show.
In Tennessee.
You don't watch that TV show.
What TV
show did I just?
It's Game of Thrones.
There we go.
I know that.
Elizabeth and I, we did cubic. It was a while ago, and we like teaching with food because everyone knows food, and that's fun to talk about. So Elizabeth said, all right, Natalie, we need to find food, and I went to the grocery store to find snacks that were hexagonal and trigonal. And Elizabeth, why are we talking about trigonal and hexagonal today?
Okay, so they are both part of the hexagonal crystal family, and actually with a lot of geologists and gemologists, a lot of times we'll actually lump them together, and it all has to do with symmetry. And we will get into more of that here in a little bit.
Okay, so I have my favorite candy bar here today. And I'm gonna take one for the team and open it up and talk about. All right, everyone, so trigonal crystal system. Elizabeth will describe chocolate.
So here you have a triangular prism. And so with your trigonal crystal system, you will have what we call planes of symmetry. Not anymore. So with trigonal crystals and hexagonal crystals, those planes of symmetry can be divided. So you can actually divide a triangular prism into 3 equal parts. And so in the trigonal crystal system, you have 3 folds of symmetry, and then the hexagonal has 6 folds of symmetry along one plane. And so here, this is a lot like a tourmaline crystal. So if anybody's ever seen a triangular prism of a tourmaline crystal, it's really what we all like to use for, I guess, a really good example of how to find your 3 different planes of symmetry. You're on your second or third
piece. My favorite candy bar, by the way.
Do I eat this?
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't know if they wanted to keep going.
So now we have hexagonal. What?
Okay, we're gonna take bets now on how many pieces she'll eat before the end of the show.
I think I'll be gone. So now we're gonna talk about what a hexagonal crystal system looks like. These are cinnamon grams. They're gluten-free. I am gluten-free, not by choice, doctor's orders. So I found some little gluten-free. All right, so hexagonal. We talked about trigonal, there's symmetry, and you can see that there's symmetry right here.
Yeah.
You want one?
So on these guys, you can divide them along the points, and then you can divide them, so if I can do this correctly. So 1, 2, and then 3 across, and then from each of the faces, and then so it's, across from here to here, across the diagonals. And so that way you have your six planes of rotation. That's how we divide them into different symmetries. And so like here, if we had a whole stack of these guys, we could call it a hexagonal prism. And really
let's do it.
So with a hexagonal prism, you could even, this would still be part of that prism, and we would just have.
No, you eat that one.
Oh, okay.
And then it has a P on there for prism. You see that? I'm kidding. Oh, that one has a fracture.
Okay, so here we have our hexagonal prism. And so in crystal systems, what we have is, we call it a unit cell, and that is the smallest repeatable structure of that prism. And so we have our A, B, and C axes. And so really what's really fun about crystal systems and crystallography is a lot of times, since you're reading about it and you're not looking at it in 3D, you kind of have to think in 3D, but you're visually seeing something in 2D, and it can get really horrible to look at. So the best thing I have found is to have physical 3D representations.
For the physical 3D representation today will be the gluten-free cinnamon graham crackers. But we also have an actual hexagonal crystal right there.
That's not.
What?
Isn't that cool?
It has 6 sides though.
That's the cool thing about trigonal hexagonal. So they're so close as far as their family goes. So in the trigonal crystal system, you can actually have a hexagonal structure to it, almost.
Wow, I was so wrong. So if you see here, you have 6 sides. That is a hexagonal crystal system.
They're also considered a family. So technically you're not wrong depending on who you ask. Your calcite, your rhodochrosite, things like that that are also a trigonal crystal are part of the hexagonal family.
Okay, so trigonal doesn't always have 3 sides. It can have 6 sides like this.
Yes,
Then what's
but
the
you have
difference?
only 3 planes of symmetry on the rotational axis.
You're right.
So if you can see, the end of this actually looks like a little triangle. So that kind of gives us a clue that our symmetry is, instead of being a 6-fold symmetry, it's going to be a 3-fold symmetry. A lot of crystallography is all about patterns. And so if you guys remember from the cubic crystal system, that you could see, you know, your garnet crystals were these really complex shapes, but at the end of the day, they all adhered to that cubic crystal system unit. And so what's really neat about all these, and I've got a ton of examples, is I had to do a lot of research on how to explain this, because even I started diving into it and was like, oh, this is like really crazy. It's really cool. You know, how do these guys relate? And so if you take the unit for a trigonal crystal, which is a rhombohedral, and this is a really bad version of one, but if you have equidistant sides, so your A, B, and C axes are all equal, but the angles are actually independent of each other, but they don't equal 90 degrees, then you can take that unit cell and turn it up on its angle so that it's like that, and fit it inside of a hexagonal unit cell, which is really wild to me. So when I was being taught all this stuff, it was more just, oh, you just have to take it at face value. Well, so I really wanted to understand it well enough to be able to describe it.
Can I unbox something?
Yeah.
There's no card.
I know.
Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get to keep it?
No.
You know, I've made jokes on other episodes about how if I kept something, you would defriend me. And if
You'd
I
be in
cracked
trouble.
something, you would defriend me.
I don't know about that, but it depends on what it is. I would be kind of mad.
So I cannot keep this on my desk.
No.
That's a nice color right there. Too bad it's not mine. So we
Can
have
you tell
emerald.
me what it is?
It's an emerald.
There you go.
Hexagonal
So
crystal
beautiful
system.
emerald. That's an obvious, really pretty hexagon
This
for
is
everybody to see.
calcite?
Yeah.
Should we show them the cool thing that calcite can do?
Yeah.
Okay. So you think it'll work on this? All right, everyone. So on this bag, you see gluten-free, crispy sea salt that is clean and clear, right? All right, so now we're gonna do something.
So if you guys can see that, so it actually has a double image due to the double refraction of the crystal.
That's really cool looking. And we actually did an article or an episode in the beginning of this channel about calcite and Viking stone. Remember that?
Yeah, Viking sunstone.
Oh, it even looks like there's double the crackers on there. Could I be so lucky? All right, so now we gotta move on. So I'm a little confused, Elizabeth. Why is this? Yeah, you're like, give me that.
You can see all of those cracks in it.
Mm-hmm.
Those are actually along planes, are along cleavage planes. So this piece, because I know that it's already a little bit weaker along those planes because you can actually see them, I get a little more nervous about it. I don't want to end up with like
50
100 of them.
Calcites.
Instead of one.
Okay, so calcite, we talked about, Elizabeth mentioned earlier that rhombohedral.
So with your trigonal crystal system, so you can actually have your rhombohedral shapes and your hexagonal shapes. It's really interesting because in the hexagonal crystal system, you can only have the hexagonal shape.
Yeah, I still don't
which
understand.
It's by definition. So this shape, when you take it down to its atomic, just its unit cell, this will have 3 folds of symmetry, whereas if it's hexagonal, it has to have 6 folds of symmetry.
The reason this is hexagonal, the difference between hexagonal and trigonal is how many planes of symmetry.
Yes.
So this is 6 planes of symmetry,
Yes.
and this is 3 planes of symmetry.
Right, and
Man,
there-
I learned something every day.
And there can be more. So say in this crystal, so you have, in this direction, you have 3 planes. And then if you look here, you have another plane of symmetry. So you can divide it straight down the middle in half. To be a trigonal crystal, it must have one direction that you can look at that crystal, and it has to have 3-fold symmetry. So 3 directions that you can divide it up. Now it can have, if you rotate it again on a different axis, you can have some crystals that also have other planes of symmetry, but the base of it is all around whether or not it has that 3-fold or that 6-fold symmetry in one direction.
So where's the symmetry on this?
So if you were to look at this guy, and of course, like with crystals, sometimes they aren't perfect, but if you were to break this down atomically to be completely just at its base unit shape, you would have a ROM that has an equal A, B, and C axis. So one here, and then one here that are all the same length. And then their angles just cannot equal 90 degrees between any of those angles. So here, that angle is probably, it's a little over 90, so it's probably around 100 degrees, but of course I'd have to have a protractor to really measure that correctly.
You probably don't have one of those today.
I don't have one
I
with
skipped that
me.
aisle because I was in the candy aisle.
But as you can see, it's not exactly a 90-degree angle. And so that's, per definition, that is what a trigonal crystal unit cell is.
All right, so we talked about the difference between trigonal and hexagonal. We used snacks.
We did use snacks.
Oh, my stomach hurts. I had a lot of sugar in a short amount of time.
Are you like 5?
Yes.
Okay, so we have some more really cool crystals to
Really?
show you guys.
Can we just poof and then they're on here? 3, 2,
2,
1. Hey, there they are.
Poof.
What do you know? The magic of YouTube. This is, I'm guessing because of the striations and the color and the resemblance to a Toblerone, this is a trigonal crystal system, and this is tourmaline.
Yes. Do you have to look at the sticker on the bottom?
I was looking at the sticker to see the SKU number on the bottom.
Oh. Okay.
Because this is
I was
Shoral.
gonna say cheater.
Did I say Shoral?
Shoral.
Shoral. Okay, so black tourmaline, I don't think we've ever had that. Maybe touched on it once or twice. Black tourmaline is called Shoral. And then this right here is muscovite. All right, so we have Shoral, muscovite, trigonal system right there. What else?
All right, so we have a calcite, and it's called a dog tooth, and I'll kind of show you guys because it looks like a canine.
I sincerely hope I never run into a dog that has a tooth that big.
Okay, well this is a big one, but it reminded people of the shape of a dog's canine tooth, so it's a dog-toothed
Or a
calcite.
vampire.
That would be terrifying. So then we also have a really pretty smoky quartz.
Cool.
And I love this guy because he is like part of the confusion between trigonal and
Look
hexagonal.
we talked about quartz on an earlier episode, and there's the conchoidal fracture.
Yep.
One of them had a conchoidal fraction. We talked about that in the last episode.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So this guy is really neat. And then we also have a lovely aquamarine crystal that shows us some really cool textures.
So aquamarine, when it comes out of the ground, sometimes it is kind of like a greenish color. A lot of times aquamarine is actually heated to get rid of the green and the blue. And that will
Strengthen the blue.
get rid of the green and strengthen the blue. Thank you, Elizabeth.
That one is all natural though.
This is au natural.
Au natural. It's actually a really old piece from an older collection. One of the reasons I like it so much is that it's really close to being a really good hexagon, but what makes it really neat to me is the etching on the surface of it. So these are rectangular etch marks, and it's really indicative of having a beryl crystal. They help us identify aquamarine beryls. And so I just thought that was really, really neat for you guys to see. And then, okay, so this is one of my favorite smoky quartz in our entire collection. Typically quartzes are not perfectly formed to show like a really almost perfect hexagon. So one of the reasons I love it is because it's really, really equant compared to most of our other pieces. And it's just so cute and really perfect. And another reason is shout out to Nevada. This is actually from a mine in Nevada. So I love my American classics and American localities.
Tell you what, we should go to Nevada.
It'd be really cool.
We'll talk for plane tickets, right? We will talk for plane tickets.
Great sacrifices.
Great sacrifices.
Great
episodes.
And then here, so we have a really awesome triangular prism. So when we were talking about our Toblerone, so you guys can see this pretty plainly. And really just the whole package is just really nice for a crystal. And then we have our apparently vampire dogtooth calcite. And so
your dogs don't have teeth that big.
No, no, not at all.
Hanging out with your dogs.
I have a lot of dogs, 5 to be exact.
Crazy dog lady, crazy cat lady.
So in the trigonal crystal system, there's actually quite a few divisions within the trigonal crystal system. And a lot of them are extremely hard to say the names for, and so you guys will have to forgive me for not going through them.
That's okay. We
But
only
here,
have so much time.
What is really neat is that you can see that all the faces are actually made out of these really nice little triangles. Well, so with this particular dog tooth, and then it actually is almost doubly terminated. So this right here is actually a cleavage plane right on the very back of it, where it was sitting like that in the matrix. But here you can also see where it was kind of trying to make another twin. So
cool.
see that V? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a little V there that makes almost another calcite. So all these have the same unit cell, which is just really cool to me.
Because they all kind of look different. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar.
They're very similar. And so this is what's so neat about crystallography, and it all comes down to some really complex math. And guys, I am no mathematician by any means.
She's really good. She's just not owning up to her skills.
I cannot do that kind of math. I can draw it. What I think is really neat is that I can look at these crystals, and if I was just to go out in a mine, or I was to go to say a really big mineral show, and I didn't exactly know what the crystal was, I could look at its shape and go, okay, well this one has these 3 planes of symmetry. I can't keep dividing it into 6, and then they all meet at certain angles to one another. Well, that has to make it trigonal. Well, so then all of a sudden that gives me a list of minerals that I can guess as to what they are. And so what's really neat about barrels and things like that, there's different barrel crystals that instead of being this nice, and it is, I call it a barrel, or not barrel crystals, oh my goodness.
Haha, you're hanging out with me too much.
Oh man, because you got me on the hexagonal crystals for corundum. But so with corundum, they can actually be flattened as well. And so cool. When you see these flat crystals,
I have seen those before. Yeah, those are pretty cool.
They're pretty neat.
You know what I love about crystal systems? When I was in gemology school, we learned all about how to distinguish cut gems.
Yeah.
But now that I'm learning more about crystal systems here at Jewelry Television, it's really cool because I can, I knew that was corundum. Yeah. I knew that was tourmaline, and you can learn about rough more when you learn about the crystal systems.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Which is really cool. And so with your cut stones, you can actually look at a cut stone. And so with a corundum, they have certain properties that will say, okay, well, this crystal is doubly refractive. Well, then that limits other crystal systems. And then I can start going from there. And eventually, even if I don't know what it is, I can walk it into which crystal system and which mineral it actually is. And so when you guys see birefringence and your pleochroism and all that kind of stuff, and your, different properties in gemstones, it all breaks down into how that crystal actually formed. And so by learning about your crystal systems, you can actually learn about the gemstones that you have in your jewelry or in your own collections at home.
Mm-hmm. This is just kind of a deep dive into the world of crystal systems. And if you all are interested in this, this is definitely something that we're going to keep covering. Hopefully we'll find snacks that match the crystal systems.
That might be really
It's going to get really
hard.
tough for some of them.
It's going to get really hard. So if you guys
maybe we'll bake.
Make some predictions, or actually look up crystal systems, or look up your favorite minerals.
Yeah,
and
that's
see
a
what
great
crystal
idea.
system they come from, and we're gonna see which one we should do next.
So we've done cubic,
and then we've done trigonal and hexagonal, because they're in the same family.
Depending on where you're from, I think the Brits think it's 2 different. No, the Brits think it's 1.
And so what it really more boils down to is whether or not you started off more looking at gemstones, because a lot of times they'll actually lump them together.
And that's what I started off with. I started off learning all all about gems and then kind of touched on the crystal systems. Elizabeth started off
I started off as a geologist, and so now I'm going through the GEMA program. So in it, they actually do distinguish, but they say in it that they are often put together depending on where you are.
So I think typically...
So it's American...
Splits them.
So the American versus the British. For geologists, I was always taught to split them, but with gemologists in America, a lot of times they're taught to lump them. And then in Great Britain, or how I was taught in GEMA, they like to split them, but at the same time, they said that you can put them together because of how similar their structures are.
That is important to this episode because Elizabeth and I, when we were kind of talking about what episodes we wanted to cover, we actually said like, all right, do we have enough to talk about to make 2 different episodes? And we thought that it was a really good idea to combine them so that we can show you all the difference and talk about how, you know, depending on what your background is and where you are, there's going to be some differences about how this topic is discussed.
What I always love about it is that in the end, you know, it comes down to, you know, really not like how we split them up or anything like that. It's more just down to like identification and their different properties, and which can be really similar.
We had a great episode today. I know I learned a lot. I always love having Elizabeth on the show. I say thank you for the emeralds because you know how much I love emeralds. This is kind of scary. But that's okay because we learned something today. That's kind of scary. I would not be happy to see a dog that had that tooth. Tell us maybe 2 things that our viewers need to remember going forward about trigonal and hexagonal crystal systems.
So for your trigonal and hexagonal, you have, even if it has a hexagonal shape, you're gonna have, for a trigonal crystal, the shape of it repeats every 120 degrees for a 3-fold symmetry.
Cool.
And then for your hexagonal, everything repeats every 60 degrees for a 6-fold symmetry in a single direction.
All right, everyone, take a closer look at this piece of emerald. I love the color, and look at the shape. You can see 6 very distinct sides. Elizabeth, pick one that you would like.
Ooh, that's really hard for me.
I know, I'm sorry.
Actually, I'm gonna go, so I said that the quartz was one of my favorites in the entire building, but the more I've looked at this little sapphire crystal, the more I have fallen in love with it.
It's cute.
It's really cute. And so what I love about it is, even though here we have a 6-sided prism, you can look at the top of it and still see that distinctive triangle and see that on here the pattern repeats every 120 degrees rather than every 60. And the fact that it's a nice little doubly terminated floater.
Nice color too.
It's nice color.
We are done today talking about trigonal and hexagonal crystal systems. I've learned a lot. Elizabeth has been a great guest.
Tell us your favorite gemstone or mineral and what crystal system they come from, as long as it's not, well, you can still do it if it's hexagonal, trigonal, or cubic, but we want to see what you guys want to learn about next.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and send Elizabeth a heart emoji. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you. See ya.